Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hospitality Room presented by Mascot Media. Mr. Swofford is back from the beach. You have survived. Yes.
Yeah, I am back from the beach, back from the East Coast, just in time to go back to the East Coast next week. So here we go.
And you brought all the heat and humidity with you.
I did. It was not nearly this hot and definitely not this humid on the beach last week.
Woo.
I got off the plane in Little Rock on Sunday about noon, and I understand that the Little Rock Airport is nothing but concrete, especially when you walk out of the terminal. But my
Hmm.
God, I was like, I am not on the beach anymore. I mean, it just hits you in the face, and it was just miserable. And I went home and took a 3 hour nap.
Yeah. It's been toasty lately, to say the least. All right, let's go ahead and get to our headlines. Sad day for baseball. The Say Hey kid Willie Mays passed away this week. Obviously, we did not get to see him play, but you look at his
Right.
numbers. You you talk to people older than you about baseball, and I mean, he is. I, I don't know if he's on the Mount Rushmore because there's so many great players, but he's definitely in the discussion if he's not on the Mount Rushmore.
No doubt, and not just about what he did offensively, but he was the first true amazing defensive player that's really talked about. My dad grew up a huge Cardinals fan and Stan Musial fan, but he always talked about how he loved watching Willie Mays. And one of the things that he talked about was from his childhood was the favorite thing that he ever saw was the Cardinals play the Giants, and he got to see Willie
Mm.
Mays play in person.
Oh
So
wow.
you hear those stories, and obviously coming straight from your father, it's really cool just to see the impact that someone who didn't play in this part of the country wasn't a huge impact to people that grew up around you and I did, but he still found a way to etch himself into the minds of a lot of baseball fans throughout the years. And it's a sad day anytime you see a legend of probably a top 10 player. And I'm kind of with you. I don't know if he's a Mount Rushmore type, but the top 10 player all time. And anytime you lose someone like that, it's an impact to the game, no doubt.
It's amazing. You hear all the tributes and everything that have come out, and obviously get reintroduced to his numbers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
3,000 hits, 600 home runs, and he was the top defensive player, 24 All Star games. I mean,
Yeah.
he, I don't, you don't want to try to compare him to a present day because that's not fair.
Right.
But if he, I mean, he would be bigger than Otani, though, if he played now with his skill set, would he not?
Yeah, he was every bit as popular, if not more, than Ken Griffey Jr. in his prime before the injury started catching up with him in Cincinnati. That's who I kind of compare. I thought Ken
Yeah,
Griffey
that's a
Jr.
good
was going
one.
to be the next superstar, but just injuries caught up with him. Body continued to break down once he left Seattle. To me, I mean that's the one comparison that because baseball in my heyday was the '90s, in
Hmm.
the early 2000s, and that's when Griffey was just lighting the world on fire. He had his own video game and things like that. And Willie Mays was 10 times more popular than that. And if that kind of puts it into perspective for me.
Yeah, that's really a great comparison because Griffey did it at the plate and also defensively, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing that separated Willie Mays. And it's interesting because I don't know if we see those type of players anymore with the multiple skill sets.
No, I mean, everybody talks about how great Mike Trout is, but he's never won a Gold Glove. He's a very good center fielder,
He's never
but
won a
he can't stay
playoff game.
healthy. Yeah, he's never. Yeah, that too. Yeah, there are not many comparisons. Jim Edmonds defensively comes to mind, but he was not
Hmm.
nearly as good of a hitter.
No.
And so to put all the tools together, Ichiro maybe that may be
Yeah.
the most recent comparison. So talking about another Seattle outfielder, but there's not many who do it in every facet of the game like Willie Mays did.
Yeah. I mean, Ichiro with power
Hmm.
might be a good. I did
Yeah,
hear
I
one.
mean Barry
Go ahead.
Bonds before he Barry Bonds before he did the juice.
Yeah.
I mean he
Yeah.
was an amazing outfielder.
Yes, he was. Yeah, I mean, just incredible. I did hear a funny story. Halloween, he would kids would come to everyone knew where he lived, so kids would come dressed up, and he would give the kids signed autographed baseballs, which are
That's
probably
awesome.
worth how much now? I mean, but how
Yeah,
cool is that?
yeah, it's
I mean,
wild.
how many people would you want an autographed baseball from?
Yeah,
trick or treat. And, most of them probably didn't really totally understand who he was, but
That's like the little
amazing.
peanut butter bars. That's the one thing that your parents got to check your candy. Like dad's like, oh, God, that's not healthy for you. Let me go ahead and
Yeah,
take that baseball.
yeah, yeah. Gonna parental discretion here. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's sad too because one of the reasons Major League Baseball is in Birmingham to play tomorrow is to play at Rickwood Field to salute the Negro Leagues and Willie Mays who played there. Have you ever been to Rickwood
I've
by
not.
chance? It is cool. They should play the SEC tournament there one time. I know it would be logistically difficult, but it would just be something cool and different. And boy, it's much better than the Hoover Met. But it is the
Well,
oldest
they've already
ballpark in
moved the
America.
yeah yeah they've already moved the SEC tournament. It's now played in Omaha in mid to late June.
Well, that's true. Well, and speaking of which, we will get to the next
Transition.
headline. Beautiful transition. 8 is now 2. We've got 2, Tennessee and A&M, and if you're a Razorback baseball fan, you are absolutely disgusted.
Yeah. I don't know which is worse, the fact that Vitello might win a national championship before Dave Van Horn or Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Both of those things are pretty disgusting. What the SEC teams did in Omaha to the ACC, also that's borderline abuse.
Yeah.
It shows the haves and the have-nots of college baseball, and I understand it takes a lot to get there. And 4 teams got to the College World Series from the ACC. They went 0 for against the SEC, 0 for 5. That is not a good representation of your conference.
No, and and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that Arkansas finished ahead of A&M during the regular season and nothing. I mean, they didn't get out of their own regional, and here
Yeah.
A&M's playing for the national championship. So it's
Yeah,
just
but it's. I mean, you know this better than anybody, Blair. It's all about how you're playing, when you're playing.
yeah.
If they play the postseason in mid to late March, early April, Arkansas probably runs roughshod through it. But they peaked too early. They kind of started to fall apart, especially the pitching and the hitting. And you can see what the recruiting that Arkansas is doing right now, and the guys that are going out and getting in the transfer portal. It's not power guys. They're going for
No.
guys who can hit for average.
Yeah, which is what you need in Omaha because granted we've seen
Correct.
some home runs, but I mean that's a ballpark. Ultimately, I think that's what you got to build your team for. If you to get there because you got to produce runs because it's a big
Mm-hmm.
ballpark. You have to manufacture
Yeah.
them. Old school baseball, not Earl Weaver 3-run homers. So,
Yeah, it's that first game, the Tennessee Florida State game is the anomaly. Like that doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen in Omaha
no.
ever. Those 12 to 11 games died in the '90s right before they flipped over to the BB Core bats. But then you see how many 5-4 games, 4-3 games. Did we see? I know there was a couple, eruptions. The 15 that was it Florida scored
Yeah.
yesterday or in the first
Hmm.
game. But those don't happen very often. But Arkansas has had a couple of those in the past. But again, they don't happen very often. It's I don't know. If you're an Arkansas fan, you didn't watch the game last night. You probably woke up thinking to yourself, God, seriously, Texas and
Yeah.
Tennessee. Yeah, it's
It's the worst case scenario. I mean, you would almost prefer Florida in there over
for
A&M.
sure. Yeah.
But here's the crazy thing, because granted it's a long. I like how they've condensed it because you and I have both been to
Mm-hmm.
Omaha, and when it's 2 weeks, it is a slog by the time you get to this point. So it's probably
Yeah.
a good thing it's condensed. But would we the check swing from that Tennessee Florida State game? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if that call is made, who knows where we're at now?
Yeah. No,
And
you're
was
exactly
it a
right.
swing?
Yeah, it was. I mean,
I
he
thought so
definitely went.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from every angle. I mean, you obviously have to appeal that down to third, and it's close. I mean, and
Hmm.
you're asking a guy who's probably 115 feet away, because they don't stand even with the bag. They're beyond that third base bag, and
Hmm.
it's I get the frustration, but it's part of baseball. Until you go to a completely automated umpiring system, which they'll never do, you're going to have calls like that. And let's be real, it's all about taking advantage of extra opportunities. And both teams did that in that game. Because
Hmm.
we were on the beach, and that was a late game, and it started late, and so we were watching that in the house we were staying at, and it's unreal the number of errors. You drop a grounder with 2 outs. they'll allow an extra base runner to advance, and all of a sudden, next one base hit, and they're scoring. So both those teams took advantage of those extra opportunities, and Tennessee obviously got a huge opportunity there and took advantage, and they haven't looked back. I mean, they truly do look like an unbeatable college baseball team right
Oh
now.
yeah, they're the hot team, but A&M's playing so well. It should be an entertaining series to watch. It'll be a total dud. But I couldn't help but think on that check swing. Remember the Giants losing the NLCS on a check swing call that wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
a check swing. So it's
Yeah,
like, I mean, it's inches, and it's a judgment call, and that's the one thing
correct.
we've seen more of. We saw it in the Women's World Series. We've seen it in the Men's World Series. Reviews of judgment calls, which just blows my mind because I mean, judgment calls are not, you can't argue those in a sense
Mm-hmm.
because it's a judgment, but yet we're reviewing them. I mean, but there's other things we're not reviewing that aren't judgments, but everything kind of is a
Mm-hmm.
judgment. So I don't know. Are we going nuts with review?
Well, yes. I mean, in every sport, it's gone, out of control. I mean, you watch the final 2 minutes of an NBA basketball game, you may be there in half an hour.
At
I mean,
least.
honestly, college basketball has gotten to that point, and college football with the targeting rule, like every little hit is reviewed these days. Um, I understand the thought of, hey, let's get it right, and I'm all for making sure that the play is determined by the players and not by a call or a non-call. But at some point, common sense has to come into play. It's like, hey, these games were really, really successful for decades without all this video review. We don't have to muck up the waters with all this review. But I mean, with baseball and softball, you could really go down a rabbit hole
Mm-hmm.
where almost every call is reviewable. Every single call that is made, every play at first base, every ball and strike, every check swing, every diving catch could be reviewed. And so you have to be really careful when you open that Pandora's box. Like, okay, how much do we want to let out?
Mm-hmm.
Because it could really take a very slow game and make it unwatchable if you really go down that path.
Yeah, and then you're talking about robot umpires.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you gonna appeal that? Because
Yeah.
the robot made the call. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
I mean I don't know. It's interesting. And one other thing before we get away from the World Series, A&M's in the finals. I know they played Florida. I didn't see the game as a concert last night. Did the goofy Aggie fans show up again? Were they finally kicked out? Because the first time they played Florida, you recall they
Mm-hmm.
had the two fans go down and yell at Kevin O'Sullivan for some internet rumor about, he and the Bat Boy. I mean, you can Google it. It's
Mm-hmm.
insane. Conspiracy theory. What is wrong with people thinking they can, I mean, if accusing him of being a murderer and whatnot. Well, one, if that was true, do
Right.
you think Florida would really have him employed? Um, what goes through people's minds thinking they're gonna go down there and yell at the dugout and make a difference? And it ended up costing Florida because they probably should have reviewed the play at third base
Yeah.
out safe while this is going on. I mean, what is going on?
Well, you add rain delays and a little liquid courage into idiots in the first place, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what happens. I mean, stupid things are going to happen when stupid people and alcohol are involved, and I'm assuming those two guys got a little sauce during the rain delay, and they felt that was the time and place to voice their opinions. But I mean, it's Texas A&M fans. I mean, you've seen their yell leaders. I mean,
Yeah,
this is
it's weird.
they're an odd breed.
Very odd. You know, when the Omaha Police Association tweets that you should be kicked out and not allowed back, that's bad. That's bad when you got, you know, well, you never want the police to tweet your photo, but I
Correct.
mean, that was just unbelievable. And then ESPN actually showed it, which is even more amazing because they're kind of oblivious to a lot of stuff. But
Hmm.
unbelievable, just what people do. So I don't know. And I'm surprised they haven't been exposed because you know how the internet is and Twitter and everybody else. I mean, I'm
Right.
surprised their social security numbers aren't on this, haven't been out, but whatever. I mean, nuts. So, who do you like in this championship series? Or A&M, Tennessee, or Rain?
Yeah. Once and if the games are played, you got to like Tennessee. I mean, with all the rest that they're coming off of, they don't play. They don't start the series until Saturday. I mean, so they're going to be able to set the rotation, rest the bats a little bit. Uh, they've been the best team in college baseball pretty much all season long. I understand A&M is not far behind it,
Hmm.
but I really think that Tennessee is such a explosive offensive team. I mean, they've almost made Omaha look small, which is it's hard to do. I mean, they've got guys who can hit up and down the lineup. They can pitch. I don't know how great Vitello is as a manager, but he's obviously punched all the right buttons this year. I'll go Tennessee. I'll say in three just to make it entertaining, but it would not shock me to see them win it in two.
Yeah, I think if it comes down to managers, coaches, Schlossnagel will run laps around Vitello if
Correct.
they can get it to that point. So
Mm-hmm.
both teams have a swagger, and that's something we didn't see a lot from the Hogs. So
Mm-hmm.
I I, I hate to say it, but give me the Maroon folks in three.
Yeah. Honestly, if you asked a true Razorback baseball fan, not a Hog fan, but a baseball fan,
Mm-hmm.
they would probably prefer A&M win it. If
Yeah.
you ask a Arkansas fan in general, they're like, "Oh my God, I can't root for Texas A&M." But the recency of obviously in the I guess the venom between DVH and Vitello, of course, what we saw the blow up on the field a few years ago. I don't think
Yes.
you're going to see a Hog baseball fan rooting for Tennessee.
No. No. Vitello is I don't know. He's like a polarizing figure. There's part of the
Mm-hmm.
fan base that wants him to replace DVH, and there's another
Yeah.
part that swear they would be done with the program if that happens. So,
Well, if he wins a national title, that group may be out the window.
well, I mean, you can get to Omaha where you're at. Why
Right.
move? I mean, what's the point?
It would have to be the money and just the. I mean, I can't call it nostalgia because Arkansas doesn't have the history. You
No.
know, I mean, if it's LSU, you could say, okay, it's the nostalgia being the LSU baseball coach. It would have to be something personal for him to want to replace DVH,
Yeah.
especially now that he's playing for a national championship, even if he doesn't win it. Because you're right. I mean, he's got Tennessee as the best baseball program in the country. Why go somewhere where you're on the same level, but it would have to be a money or a personal reason for him to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah, because they're going to crank up. I think they're
Oh, he's
going
going
to.
to get a huge raise.
Yeah, he's going to get raised. They're going to increase the facilities. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
A&M's already talking about redoing Bluebell Park again for the
Yeah.
40th time, and it's pretty nice. It's time to do something to Baum Walker. In all
Other than cup
honesty,
holders.
well, cup holders, yeah. But in addition to cup holders, I mean, upper deck, something. I mean, you got to expand that thing.
I have long been a proponent of putting bleachers or I guess something behind the hog pen. Maybe
Yes.
you don't get rid of all the hog pen, but behind those three or four rows behind the bullpen,
Mm-hmm.
really expand that up.
Yeah, and it would also trap in some of the noise too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Agree.
you can increase the capacity, and I would think it would be easy. And that's the one sport you have on that campus
Mm-hmm.
that's drawing. All right. Well,
I
speaking
mean,
of,
they could go up. They could maybe build an upper deck on top of the suites. But I don't know if you could do that and continue to play in the stadium for a year or two, though. That would be the issue.
yeah, I don't know. They've got enough money; they could figure it out.
Yeah.
I would hope. Hagen Smith, Collegiate Baseball Foundation Pitcher of the Year, joins Kevin Kopp. So Arkansas's had premier pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Now need to add some hitting, obviously. But man, I remember when Hagen Smith arrived. His numbers in high school, were just insane. Everybody thought, well,
Yeah.
okay, he'll be okay. It turned out to be pretty damn good.
Yeah, he turned out to be okay, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, every mock draft you see, he's like no lower than seventh projected. I mean, he's going to be a big time player. We saw it the last couple of years for Arkansas. I mean, this year almost unhittable, for the exception of
Mm-hmm.
two innings. And unfortunately, the last inning was the one that essentially ended their season. I know that wasn't an elimination game, but obviously put it behind the eight ball. But yeah, I mean, he did not struggle ever, and the consistency that he showed throughout the year was really impressive. And It's very rare that someone comes into a season with those kind of expectations and live up to them and almost even exceed them. And he certainly did.
It's kind of amazing you think about it. Cops and Smith, two pitchers in the last 3-4 years have carried a Razorback team through the season,
Yeah.
and yet they're only pitching one game in a weekend.
Yeah, cops would what they would roll out there twice maybe. Friday
That's
Sunday for a
true.
lot of series. But yeah, your point's valid. They're pitching 6 innings max.
Hmm.
Hagen, did he go farther than 6 innings in a game all year? Maybe seven in one game.
Yeah,
He
maybe
never he
so.
never went real deep into a contest, but he was consistent. Arkansas played better when he was on the mound.
Hmm.
Realistically, I mean they fielded it better, they hit it better. There's just a different swag when you know out there and you can play loose. Like, hey, if I score 2 runs tonight, we're gonna win.
Hmm.
You can do that when you've got a Hagen Smith, and tip of the cap to him. For the way he
Hmm.
pitched, and he's about to make a lot of money. And I just hope he doesn't go to the Cardinals, to be quite honest, because that's a lot of people haven't projected.
Oh, now your Cub bias is showing through. Yeah, it is kind of sad that his first inning and his last inning were the worst innings he
Yeah.
had. But in between, he was unbelievable. Totally unbelievable. All right, our next headline: Celtics win the NBA championship. Were you excited? Are they a dynasty?
So
I mean, what's all this dynasty talk and stuff?
yeah, I mean they haven't won a title in what 7 years. It's hard to be a dynasty when you haven't won it in
Yeah,
almost a decade. Yeah, I mean but they beat a 5 seed. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. They
yeah.
were the best team all season long. There's no question. But yeah, I mean it's way too early to say oh they're a dynasty. I mean they had a great year, but we'll see. I mean you got to win 2 or 3 in a row to become a dynasty.
It seems like anymore, a team wins a championship and everybody starts talking about are they greatest ever. It's just insane.
Oh,
They
for sure.
won.
Yeah,
I mean, it's come on. They won. The Mavericks don't play defense. What a shocker. Defense, though, has shown up in the Stanley Cup Finals. We're back to
yeah.
Edmonton. The Oilers, man, did they put it on the Panthers the other night? We actually have a series in a
Did you
championship.
did you happen to watch any of the game or see any of the highlights?
Yes, yes.
When McDavid breaks through and went through 3 defenders and a little assist right in front of the goal. I mean, if you don't watch hockey, you don't realize how fast they are. And then
Mm-hmm.
Connor McDavid is so much faster than everybody else; it's unreal.
Yes.
The speed in which he enters the zone is it's almost mind blowing to see. And he does this. He goes through 3 defenders and leaves them all in the dust and a little drop pass and the easy goal. It's wild to watch him on the ice. And they seem like they were on the power play the entire game in Game
Yes.
Five.
Yes.
And so they had and their offense is too good to get that many opportunities to. I honestly I think I could see this going to 7. I mean, this is a
Oh
very,
no.
very. It turned into a very entertaining series, but I thought it was going to be a landslide. The way that Bobrovsky, the Panthers goalie, was playing to start, but it's turned into real entertainment.
McDavid has flipped a switch. And if you
Hmm.
didn't know better, you see that Oilers uniform skate going through, you'd think it was, oh, this is an old Gretzky highlight.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
it's unreal
unreal.
stuff he can do with the puck. I
Yes.
mean, it is. I mean, I know most of the people who listen and watch our podcast probably don't do a lot of hockey, but do
But
yourself a
get with
service.
it.
At least
Yeah.
at least go watch that play. Just Google that one
Yes.
play, and you'll realize the kind of skill that we're talking about.
When Messier, who's on the in between periods,
Hmm.
is amazed, he played with Gretzky. He's
Yeah,
seen amazing up close. When he's raving about it, it's pretty darn good. So,
I mean, he was pretty good himself too. So, but yeah,
yeah,
you're exactly right.
he's
And I
lifted the
thought it was
cup.
really funny. They went to it was one of the intermission shows, and they have the lower thirds for the guys, and
Hmm.
it says Mark Messier 6-time Stanley Cup champion, and it goes to PK Subban and says
Yeah.
reached 2017 semifinals.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like just don't even put up a graphic for him at that point.
Oh
Just
no.
put the name up there.
Yeah, it's or put his Twitter handle up or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty. But they do a nice job, so that's cool.
yeah.
What a finish at the US
Oh
Open.
man.
Man, that was unbelievable. I was in Kansas City over the weekend umpiring, so I was listening to it driving back. And golf on the radio, you think is nothing, but it is
Yeah.
quite entertaining, especially the foreign broadcasters with the brogue and the descriptions. But man, what I mean, this is what golf needed: a shot in the arm and an exciting finish. Maybe not a great overall tournament, but a
Mhm.
great finish just to say, hey, we're still here. Professional golf is not totally dead.
Yeah, they needed something like that with big names going toe to
Hmm.
toe, and they got that. Obviously, Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau are two of the biggest names in golf. I think the one thing that was maybe lacking, but also added to the drama, is DeChambeau can't hit a fairway to save his life. He's
No,
going to swing. He's going to swing as hard as humanly possible, and he's going to miss the fairway by 30 yards every time.
which we all can relate to.
Yeah, 100%. I played golf the last 3 days, and I didn't hit many fairways, but also didn't make many birdies from the rough either.
Yeah.
So it's wild just to watch him play golf and see how is this successful. And
Hmm.
then he really dived deep into me. He has custom made 3D printed golf clubs
Yeah,
that
that's
are
nuts.
longer than everybody else's. They've got different lofts, and he doesn't number them. They're named after people. I mean, the
Hmm.
guy is an odd character, but he found a
Yes.
way to win. But for Rory McIlroy to miss not one but
Oh,
two
yeah.
essentially gimme putts. Granted, you go out there and you play at your local links course, and you pay your $20 to go ride around. A 3 putt putt's nothing. When you got like probably 1.5 or $2 million riding on a
Hmm.
putt that's the difference between first and second of the U.S. Open. That's some nerves. And first time all year he's missed one, and he missed two of them. That's wild.
Yeah, because he was pouring them in from 20 plus
Mhm.
feet throughout the entire round. But, again, that's the human element. We've all been there. Here, you got a 3-footer to shoot the best round of your life, and you end up jacking it halfway across the green and end up three putting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was just, I don't know. It was a little surprising because he's been there so many times.
Hmm.
But that sand shot, I mean, holy cow. Knowing everything that's at stake. Now, it might have been a little different if it was to force a playoff as opposed to
Hmm.
just get up and down. But still, I mean,
Yeah.
what a shot.
50 yard plus sand shots don't happen very often.
No.
And for him to stick it within 5 feet like he did, and then roll the putt in was wild. I mean, it just shows you how great these guys are. I mean, because you can only probably name a handful of courses that they play on a year that you would in anywhere have a 50 yard sand approach shot.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, the bunkers are right by the green, not that far removed from it. So it's wild. The one that he can execute that in the biggest stage, and then roll in the putt. And if DeChambeau, again, would be the world's biggest superstar if he was on the PGA Tour, but
Oh, yeah.
he's on the Live Tour, and so nobody talks about him.
True. Now it's like the Tom Kite chip at Pebble Beach that everybody who
Mm-hmm.
plays Pebble Beach wants to hit that shot. Now at Pinehurst number 2, everybody's going to want to hit that bunker shot that
Yep.
DeChambeau hit. So it's going to be incredible. Hey, you can hit us up on Twitter, HPMM Podcast. Send us an email. We'd love to read it on the broadcast here on the podcast. Big plans this week. We got some All Star action down in Conway, correct?
Yeah, we had soccer last night. We got today off, and then coming up tomorrow we've got baseball, softball, and volleyball, and then on Saturday, boys, girls basketball, and then football. So we got a lot of. I was actually thinking to myself, I'm ready for some football, but hey, I get to watch some football, and I'm going to be on the PA
Oh,
for the football and
sweet.
softball this weekend. So I got to dust off the vocal cords and get them ready.
Awesome.
Now
Speaking of,
batting, number two, Blair Cartwright.
oh, nice. Hey, we'll talk NFL next week. Speaking of football.